Hi, I am Bel Benigno. Today I will share with you some inputs, some insights about change management. It is very timely that we discuss about change management in the midst of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, which has affected all of us, individuals, families, companies, nations, everybody else is affected by the pandemic. The uncertainty of tomorrow is something that all of us are worried about. There are so many things that are happening locally and internationally. It is said that change is the only constant thing in this world. But what is change? Change is a displacement. It is a movement from one point to another, from one condition to another. It can be an alteration. It can be a transformation, a transition. It is movement from one position to another. Change can be internal or external of the individual or the organization. So for example, an internal change in an individual could be a change in perspective, personal perspective. An external change could be in terms of relationships. For companies, internal change could mean change of internal leadership, change of business models, while external change could be conforming with the new laws by the government. Change happens for many reasons, for an individual or for organizations or institutions. Well, some changes lead to success, some are leading to failure, depending on how the changes are handled. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important whether it is a personal change or an organizational change, it has to be managed. But what is change management in the perspective of the organization? In the perspective of the organization, change management is a systematic approach to deal with transformation or transition, meaning there are steps that are done. There is planning that is done to be able to approach the transformation or the transition. It is a conceptual business framework for people, processes, and organization. Because in an organization, when you change, it's not only about management. It's about everything else that comprises the organization, from the soft to the hard structures of the organization. What are the conditions that may necessitate change management in organizations? One example could be an implementation of technology. I remember one of my experiences in the 1980s towards 1990s was teaching people of a newspaper company to use Macintosh computers for desktop publishing. Can you just imagine how people resisted it, knowing that, thinking that they may be displaced because of the advent of computers? Sometimes it is the change in business models. Sometimes the companies need to merge or acquire other companies. It could be because of change of leadership. For example, in companies that I have worked with, every 4 years, the president would change because the company was led by retired generals, and they are not supposed to be with us when they reach the age 60. So every 4 years, there is change of leadership. Or change in organizational structure to be able to adapt and be able to gain whatever goals the organization has. Sometimes it is change in systems and procedures. For example, I have clients who would change their performance management system. That is a change because people will be adopting something else. They will be moving from one system to another. Or change management is necessary. For example, in times of crisis, like what's happening right now to us, what we are experiencing right now. Like for example, right now in companies, we have changes in reporting, for example. Some people work from home. These are inevitable things that should happen because of the pandemic. So, crisis is one reason why you need to manage change in your organization. So, why do you manage change? Because you want to successfully implement strategies and methods. You want to help people to accept. It's very important that people understand and accept change and eventually adapt to the change. There are so many models that you can find about change management. Among the popular are the Kotter's change management theory. It is being adopted all around the world. The Bridges transition model, the ADKAR model, the Lewin change management model. This is the model that most organizations use if they want to change, if they want to manage change process in their organization. Or the McKinsey 7S model. Now, the change management is said to be a process. In other words, there are steps that you have to do to be able to successfully manage change. So number one is you have to identify first what is the improvement that you need. What is the problem at hand that would require change? You have to somehow diagnose. You have to diagnose, understand the problem. Next is you gain approval from the decision makers. It's very important. In my experience as an HR manager, there are so many employee engagement activities that I have implemented. But I needed always the approval of management. I always need to gain approval so that management can buy into it. Meaning you start from up. You don't discount the top because they are the decision makers. Next is you create the plan. Here, you place the details of the things that you want done to solve the problem that you are looking at. So, you can have formal or informal solutions depending on the problem that you're handling. You have to identify in the plan the accountable people or departments. So you have to identify the accountability. And then the timelines. It's not the case that you want to do this heaven knows when. There should be a definite timeline on the things that you want done. Of course, you have to identify what resources do you need to be able to carry out the change process, to carry out your plan. The systems, the processes, or the support you need should also be stipulated, and how you will be able to monitor the progress of your plan. Of course, the next step is to secure your resources. You already got the approval, you already got the plan, you have specified the resources that you need. So where will you get it? You have to source it. One very important step is the communication of the plan to the stakeholders. Normally, this is where implementation of the change process fails, because people, the stakeholders, people that are involved in the process, are not properly informed about the changes that have to be done. And what will happen if that is the case? People become resistant, people doubt the process, people do not want to do it, and so on and so forth. And then the next step is you monitor the progress. You have to assess the risks. If you're going through the process, you have to ensure that you have checked all the resistance, all the risks, and make necessary adjustments if necessary. Now, when do you celebrate success? Is it after you have finished everything, or in certain strategic points? You should be able to celebrate successes even if they are small. Then the last thing is, because the change is something that you want to uphold over time, you have to review it. Time and again, you have to review it. Are the effects of change the ones that we want? Revise if necessary, or continuously improve. Japanese have the so-called kaizen, small improvements. Day by day, there is an improvement. So these are the steps that you can use to be able to manage change. Now, let us look at what can contribute to a successful change management. Number one is very important, that goals are clear. Roles are clear. Accountability and responsibilities are clear to the people who are involved in the process. In other words, all levels should understand what is it that you want to achieve. Another contributory factor would be the leadership and the alignment of people. Leaders should lead with a culture, meaning each company, each organization has its own culture, and therefore the leaders should be able to be conscious about leading through the culture, not any other way. Because if you lead by the culture, people will act, react, interact, behave, and work together within the company. In so doing, you can minimize the resistance of people and the chances of them accepting and adapting to change would be higher. Next is the resources and timely availability of the resources. Even if you have a very good plan and you don't have resources to carry out your plan, you're bound to fail as well. Resources is contributory to the success of the plan. So if there are bureaucracy to be able to secure resources, that should be addressed early on. It is important for a change management to succeed that there's transparency and honesty. People must clearly see the intent of the plan or the process. Next is the assurance of team members. Team members need to be updated from time to time of the important information or progress of the process or the plan. Members need to know that their concerns or questions will be properly answered by the correct person. In other words, you have to designate a person that is supposed to be the official spokesman of the process. Effective communication is another factor that would allow you to succeed in your change management endeavor. So what do you communicate? When do you communicate? To whom do you communicate? How do you communicate? What would be the medium that you will use to communicate? And most importantly, why is the process being undergone by the organization. People sometimes know what to do, how to do it, but they fail to understand why they are doing it. So the moment they're done with the job assigned to them, they don't care anymore because they're done. Because they do not understand why they are doing it or the impact of their contribution to the change management. All stakeholders of the process should have a correct understanding of the process that they are plunging into. So nobody should be left out. Everybody should be informed properly. Everybody's opinion or concerns should be counted in and addressed as necessary. And of course, it's very necessary that a successful change management would merit reward and recognition. Now, we have mentioned that it is very important for the change management process to succeed by having effective communication process. Internal communication is an essential tool in the change management process. If you lack it, you can fail in the process. Information to be communicated must be official. So like in the pandemic that's happening now, in the country, in the Philippines, there is one body that is the official spokesperson when pandemic is being discussed. And every organization, if you would want to do some change management, you have to have somebody who can officially, who is the source of official information. So you don't go to chismis, you don't go to people having doubts about the process. The channels or media to be used should also be considered. Would it be effective if you use the bulletin board? Will it be effective if you use the email or the internet, the intranet, the text messaging, FB, Messenger, face-to-face, meetings? So you have to identify which measure or media can be more effective in communicating. It's very important that along the way, as you carry on the change management, you monitor the progress. You take note of the things that are done. You take note of the things that are not done and analyze why are these things not done. Documentation is very important in the change process. So later on, when you will be undergoing a change management again, you can refer to these documentations. Now, in the advent of the pandemic, how do we communicate the organizational changes to our employees? Because we know that employees must know what is being implemented by the organization, especially now that, well, reporting to work will be different. Employees must know the objectives of or the goals of the process. Why are the things being implemented? So they can identify, they can commit to the process. And what an assurance are you giving to your people? Can they ask you questions? How can they throw to you their concerns? All information being disseminated should be in accordance with the overall communication plan of the organization, especially during this pandemic. It's very important that whatever is said by one department is part of the overall communication plan of the organization. Now, leadership is very important also if you want to succeed in the change management. So, when you are a leader and you are leading the change process, again, communication is a very important competency that you should have. What do you communicate? How do you communicate? When do you communicate? Why do you communicate the certain things about the process? Then collaborate. You should be able to bring people to work together so that you can all together execute the plan. It means working across all levels. When you are collaborating, you should not tolerate unhealthy competitions. You should count opinions and ideas of people so you can increase their commitment. And number 3, if you're a leader of change, you should be committed. You should be resilient and persistent and be willing to do an extra mile. Not what is mandated, not only what is mandated, not only what is written, but stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something else more than what is written, devoting more time to be able to carry on the change process. I'm talking now to the HR people. We HR people, we are the agents of change in organization. That is our role. We are the catalyst of change in the organization. Looking at our condition now in the pandemic, the way we did things 2 months ago is very, very different from how we are doing them now. For example, work from home. It used to be that companies would not allow it because of control. So now, we cannot afford but do a work from home so that we can still achieve our objectives. As HR practitioners, there lies the challenge in the changes on how things are done in HR. Timekeeping, compensation and benefits, training, performance management, and the likes. It is important for us HR practitioners to identify as early as now, while we're preparing for the ECQ to be lifted, how we can help in the transition to the new normal. Because we know that our new normal will be really different from our normal 2 months ago. You have to be the first to acknowledge the change that is going on and that is happening. You are the first to accept it, to adapt to it, to communicate to the employees, and to help the employees carry through the process. So HR plays a vital role in the change management process, particularly now that we are in the pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, these are some things that I have researched, that I have put together, that I can share with you. You may want to think about it. I wish you good luck, and I hope you got something, a thing or two from this sharing. Thank you very much.